Are you numb to it yet, folks? Welcome into the Monday edition of the Dream Stream here at FTNDaily.com, presented to you as always by Superdraft Daily Fantasy. My name's Zach Graham, aka Kawaisenberg DFS. I haven't updated the board behind me, but it has been 3 days since I talked on the stream while muted. I'm here, becoming our new Monday tradition, and I'm loving it. Here with my good buddy Adam Pfeifer. Adam, repping the Battle Red Bills jersey over there, coming off a huge divisional win. So unlike some previous Mondays in our recent past, Adam, I think feeling pretty good, but let me know yourself, Adam. How you been?
Yeah, buddy, I'm good. Victory Monday, and just it's always better when it's. Listen, I'll be quick because we have a lot to get to, but there was a lot of the Bills, the Patriots are back to dominating. I was like, let's see them play when there's not 65-mile-an-hour winds and it impacts the Bills' offense way more than New England. And sure enough, oh, look at that. Mac Jones has to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen, and we saw how that worked out. So, yeah, yesterday was a good day other than the fact that, Jonathan Taylor and Tyreek Hill scored a combined, 13 fantasy points in one of my most important leagues, and I have lost in the semifinals in my hometown friends league for the 4th year in a row. So, feels bad.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've shown you my 53-man roster league that is kind of like my most important one with all my best friends. Made it to the title game 7th year in a row. Only 2 rings, though, so working on my 3rd this year. But as you alluded to, Adam, we have almost too much to talk about. Only 7 games, but nearly every team on this slate affected in some way, shape, or form by the health and safety protocols. Some of the news, if you're just joining us, just rolling in, Trae Young will play, DeAndre Ayton out, and Houston, we'll count up how many players they have. Some guys going to be faux active, that being KPJ and Jalen Green, active but will not play. They will play on the second half of the back-to-back tomorrow. And I guess we can just go ahead and start there, Adam. Let's do this game by game unless you protest to that.
Houston, how can you not at this point?
Yeah, I think it's just, jumping around would be even more chaotic than our normal dovetailing around a slate on a Monday, but 7 games here. Let's get into it. The only game going off at 7 p.m. Eastern at lock, Houston visiting the Charlotte Hornets. The Houston side, again, as Eddie pointed out on the Christmas Day slate, a lot of these teams, it's easier just to read who is active. So for the Rockets, they will have Christian Wood, Alperen Sengun, Eric Gordon, Armani Brooks, Josh Christopher, David Nwaba. I believe Daniel Tice is in. Usman Garuba should be available. Trevelin Queen, and did I mention Josh Christopher? I think I said Josh Christopher. Yeah. So Jalen, and as I said, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr. active but not expected to play. So Adam, when you look at the ever-shifting Rockets lineup here, what stands out to you?
I mean, it's pretty easily Christian Wood. Just centers against Charlotte. It's just absurd. Any metric, field goal percentage allowed within 6 feet of the basket, I believe they're still worst in the league. You look at our advanced DVP tools, they're like bottom 5 against rebounders, rim protectors, skilled centers. They're the worst post-up defense in the league. It's just Christian Wood clearly stands out, not only as the best play from this game, in my opinion, but one of the best plays of the slate. Now, we'll talk about a lot of other centers because things got a lot more interesting, but yeah, I think Christian Wood's in a ridiculously good spot. Honestly, obviously you can go to other players from this team, but I also don't know if you have to on this slate. So for me, it's kind of Christian Wood from the Rockets, and then everything else is, viable, but not standing out as core plays or anything like that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Christian Wood, a really strong spend up now, and also on our sponsor Superdraft, carrying that 1.25x multiplier. I think you have to like that, even on a slate where a lot of those higher multiplier guys are going to stand out on a site like Superdraft. But from this team, I got my eye on Josh Christopher at 3-7. Very limited number of guards that can handle the rock here for the Rockets. I think you're going to see Eric Gordon slide over, play some point guard. Armani Brooks will play some point, and then Josh Christopher. I think those will be the 3 guys splitting up the ball handling duties for this Houston team. And for me, Josh Christopher at 3-7 really stands out. We've seen him have some good performances in that price range in the last couple weeks, especially when Houston has been shorthanded like this. And at 2x on Superdraft, he also really stands out to me. We'll get a starting lineup here, I would assume, in the next 10 or 15 minutes. But yeah, for value here on DraftKings, it would be Josh Christopher for me, probably then Armani Brooks and Eric Gordon in that order. I'm just going to go ahead and take the savings because I think all of those guys project really well for their price. And it's an interesting conversation to have about Alperen Şengün now too, just because they're so shorthanded. There's a lot of guys that really can only play the 5 on this team, or maybe not a lot, but are only front court players, I should say. Christian Wood, Alperen Şengün, Daniel Tyson, Usman Garuba, 4 of the, 9 or 10 guys that I read off are just strictly forwards or centers. And so I think Şengün with his, I just think this is a guy you can play at the 5 with Christian Wood at the 4. I think we'll see that some tonight. So at 5-4, if you're playing, I assume maybe there's a showdown here for this first game. He would be somebody I would be trying to get to. And on Superdraft at 1.85x, he's not a bad play either. But I think I agree with you. My priorities here, Christian Wood and Josh Christopher with Eric Gordon and Armani Brooks closely behind.
Yeah, and I'll add, Christopher's fine. And I think Eric Gordon's fine too. Charlotte, as bad as they are, this is just a team that plays. First of all, this is a fast-paced game. We know these teams are both 2 of the fastest teams in the NBA. Charlotte also, the last handful of years, has been pretty bad against spot-up shooters. This season, they're pretty bad again. I mean, you look at the numbers, they are allowing the 4th most points per game to spot-up shooters. And if you look at Eric Gordon's spot-up numbers, they're not as high as they have been in the past. But we know that's still a huge part of his game. And like you said, he'll probably handle the ball a little bit more than normal tonight. And Houston's top spot-up shooter is Garrison Matthews, who's is among the league leaders in spot-up points per game. He's unavailable tonight, so a lot of that might just go more to Eric Gordon. So I think Gordon's a perfectly strong mid-range play, especially because this game, obviously he's going to get the ball more in his hands and get up more shots with the injuries and COVID situations with Houston, but also just the environment of this game being pretty fast and high pace. So.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. You talk about the high pace this game. Let me refresh the board here. Sitting at 234.5 total, right where it opened. The Hornets 8-point favorites at home here. And let's flip to the Hornets side. The highest team total on the slate, 121.25 implied team total. Also got some new additions here. We thought the COVID Hornets were in the past. They are not. Miles Bridges, PJ Washington going into the protocols today. So, you're going to have the same names here: LaMelo, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, some Terry Rozier. Cody Martin also came out of the protocols today and is available. Last I checked, he was listed out to start the day. But with those 2 guys out, Miles Bridges and PJ Washington, you've got a shorthanded front court here once again. So I think where I'm looking first is a 4K Mason Plumlee on DraftKings and a 3.7 Jalen McDaniels. It's not a night to get your McDaniels confused, as we'll get to his brother in Minnesota shortly. But I think those are kind of my 2 priorities here. I'm fine with any of those mid-range 6K plays, Hayward, Oubre, Rozier, etc. I don't think I'm getting to Cody Martin coming out of the protocols and an elevated price tag. And then LaMelo, I think, is a fantastic spend up if he can get the minutes. 9.5 is something I'm interested in. So talk to me about how you're looking at the Hornets.
Yeah, you mentioned with the Rockets, Christian Wood can play the 4, obviously, and the 5. Tice will play the 5. So with Washington out, Plumlee's minutes should be up, and at 4K, they're he won't be nearly as popular as JaVale McGee, who we'll get to. So that could be an interesting pivot there, and the game environment is better for Plumlee. Now he's not as productive as a permanent player, and we've seen what JaVale McGee does when he starts or gets 20 plus minutes this season. But Plumlee's perfectly viable. LaMelo, ceiling wise on this slate, right up there with anybody, especially in this game, and for the mid-range plays, like you mentioned, Rozier, Hayward, and Kelly Oubre, I like the price on Gordon Hayward. He's been awful the last couple games. But, if you're playing a tournament, Kelly Oubre has a higher ceiling, and he's actually cheaper. So I would tend to probably just lean Oubre in that case. And then, Jalen McDaniels, 3,700, I think you said he was. He'll have to play 30-plus minutes, most likely, especially if Cody Martin's not playing full minutes in his first game back. So McDaniels, it's tough because there are so many value plays in this slate, but I haven't checked the opto or anything in a couple, in like a half hour, an hour or so, but I would imagine he's still among the top 10, values on the slate, if not too far behind that.
Yeah, and I need to refresh that as well. So I don't think we're really too far off there on Charlotte. Anything else from this game? I mean, it's certainly a game that can be like, even with Miles Bridges and PJ Washington out, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte kind of blew this out here and like a guy like LaMelo didn't necessarily get there. Maybe Christian Wood, like in lieu of like Alperen Şengün getting in there. I think we might see Daniel Tice get in here and start at the 4 or the 5, whichever you want to say he's at when he starts alongside Christian Wood. So again, we'll circle back once we get starting lineups here. And we'll move on to the next game. Chicago, visiting the Atlanta Hawks, where Trae Young is activated and the only Hawks player who will clear health and safety protocols before tonight's game. So just an update on the Hawks players who are available today. As of about 10 minutes ago, it's Trae Young, Skylar Mays, Bogdan Bogdanović, Cam Reddish, Clint Capella, Cat Barber, Lance Stevenson. This is where we get into the fun part, Adam. Chaundi Brown, Malik Ellison, Malcolm Hill, and the gorgeous dong himself, Gorgie Jang. So we saw John Collins go into the protocols for this team, joining the laundry list of other guys. We saw DeLon Wright go into the protocols. And then with Trae Young coming back, kind of taking away some of the fun, I really wanted to get a ton of Skylar Mays today. Now my interest there is a bit muted. But when you look at this Atlanta team, still very short-handed at home here. Anybody stand out as priorities to you now with Trae Young back?
Obviously, Trae Young is going to have the ball in his hands all game, but his return really doesn't move me off Skylar Mays at all. I mean, it's not like Skylar Mays was 5K and it's like he was playing massive minutes and dominating, and now players are back. Like we got DeLon Wright obviously out, and every single wing from this team, essentially outside of Cam Reddish and Bogdanović, are still out. So I think you can still perfectly view Skylar Mays as a top 5 value play on the slate. I think it does hurt Lance Stevenson. I hate to say it, Zach. I'm sorry, buddy. But I think Stevenson, he's still viable if you want to go down to 3,100 to play him. But his minutes, even with everybody out the last couple games, weren't even close to Skylar Mays. So, like, with Young back, what's his ceiling for minutes, do you think?
On Lance?
Yeah.
I mean, not high enough. I mean, yeah, I would say low 20s.
I think it's ceiling. Yeah, I was going to say like 17, 18.
Yeah, like if the game played out perfectly for him, you'd probably have to get some foul trouble on multiple guys, I think, because you still have Reddish and Bogdan there, and obviously Skylar Mays. And like, would it shock you if Coach McMillan wanted to go with one of these other guys over Lance? Just like, I know Lance is the more established player historically, but like, you're gonna get less, I mean, for lack of a better term, less wild shit going on probably by playing Cat Barber or Malcolm Hill over a guy like Lance Stevenson, who, we talked about it on the live stream last Thursday night, Lance has not changed. He will never change. And if you're in a competitive game here, just my opinion, I love Lance, obviously, but probably not the guy you want to have out there. So I agree with you. I think the minute ceiling is definitely lowered here with Trae Young, and not really a ton of priorities for me from this game as a whole. Like, looking at the Chicago side, obviously they're still shorthanded in terms of, what we'll hope to see from this team in the playoffs, but Lonzo Ball in the protocols now, Alex Caruso still out with that foot sprain, Derrick Jones Jr. also missing for this team alongside Tony Bradley and Alfonso McKinney, who got his 10-day contract converted into a full season contract. So congrats to him, former Austin Spur Alfonso McKinney. But for our purposes tonight, Adam, Zach LaVine back, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, all above 9K on DraftKings. I think it's certainly viable for one of those guys to end up optimal at the end of the night. But do you have any sort of lean on who it would be?
No, and that was my point too. Like, they're all over 9K on DraftKings. LaVine showed that ceiling last game, but who's to say, especially against a shorthanded Atlanta team, that all three players have 36, 38, and 40 fantasy points. Like, that won't really get it done. And then, like, yeah, with Caruso and now Lonzo out, like, Kobe White probably starts. He's viable, but it's still the high usage players there alongside him, and he is going to be sharing the floor with them a lot more than normal. So, I mean, could he get there at 4,100? Absolutely, but there's so many value plays in the slate that even Kobe White entering the starting lineup isn't a priority for me. So, yeah, I mean, Chicago, if you play DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine, like, not going to fight you, but just not really where I'm looking.
Maybe I'll click one of those guys into a lineup in like a Superdraft employee league tonight, just so we can maybe fight. But no, I'm right there with you. The point is well taken.
By the way, how did I just realize that the All-Star game's in Cleveland this year?
I'm not sure, man. I mean, it's NFL season, and
Right.
It's not like there's like there's a steady stream of news coming in here over the last couple of weeks.
So Garland and Allen get to play in front of the home crowd. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they make it.
Who knows? There's like 5 players that are locks for the All-Star. Then it's like, is everybody else going to be active by then? Like half the players missed half the season. So like, are they really viable All-Star candidates? It's absurd.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because I think even like you take the COVID jokes out of it, right? Like there are more than 12 players deserving for each team, I think, in each conference. Joe and I went through that on the pod a couple weeks ago. And I think even more so true now. So it'll be interesting to see how the coaches pick those reserves when the time comes. I believe that NBA All-Star voting did open the other day. Kobe White, a little bit interesting to me here at 4-1. Should get over 30 minutes in this matchup, a good matchup against the shorthanded Atlanta team. But with all the other values on this slate, he is still not a priority for me. So Adam, for you, anything else from this game? Are you ready to move on to the 8 p.m. game?
Assuming we're going, there's only one 8 p.m. game. So yeah, this game might take 45 minutes. So might as well get started.
Yeah. Boston at Minnesota. I guess what kicked off our morning on this Monday was Jason Tatum being put into the COVID protocols. Boston will also be without Dennis Schroeder, Jason Richardson, Josh Richardson, Enes Freedom, Justin Jackson, Bruno Fernando, Aaron Nesmith, and CJ Miles. So you've got a 9.3 Jaylen Brown, 1.25x multiplier on our sponsor Superdraft. Al Horford is back in this front court. You've got a questionable Marcus Smart due to a laceration on his right hand. So it's kind of unclear where he picked that up, how severe it is. But if he's out, I think then it's definitely PP season. Peyton Pritchard 4-3, coming off a good, if not great, Christmas Day performance. So let's say Marcus Smart is in, Adam. How much interest do you have in Peyton Pritchard?
I think a decent amount still. We've seen him over the past year and a half be a very, very viable fantasy, point per minute producer. If you just take Schroeder and Tatum off the floor this season, he's at 1 fantasy point per minute, 23% usage, but the peripherals are strong too. 17% assist rate, 16% rebounding rate. Those are both better than Marcus Smart. The assist rate's actually tied with Marcus Smart. So like he's actually right there with Marcus Smart in terms of per minute production with both players off the floor. So I'm still perfectly fine with him. Obviously, Jaylen Brown gets the massive bump, 33% usage, 26% rebounding rate, 1.5 fantasy points per minute with Schroeder and Tatum off the floor. And the other thing is, like, yes, Minnesota's missing everybody, and not only everybody, but their 3 best players. But Boston's missing so many players, too, that this game could still be close enough to where Jaylen Brown's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to win this game. So,
Yeah, I agree.
And now Beverly's out.
Yeah. So we'll get to that side of the game here in a minute. Jaylen Brown, just looks like a fantastic way to spend your salary today, and gives you even more flexibility on a site like DraftKings where he's both guard and forward eligible.
And it's another reason why the 3 players from Chicago we mentioned, DeRozan, LaVine, Vucevic, it's just like it's tough to project those 3 players higher than Jaylen Brown.
Absolutely. And I also think, like, going back to that first game, like LaMelo's sitting in the middle of those guys. You've got Ja Morant a little bit cheaper, Rudy Gobert against the Spurs. Like, I think I would rather all of those guys than take a shot on, one of those Bulls guys who could put up a 35, and really tank your lineup on a slate like this. Certainly not out of play, but if I'm running one lineup, like 1 to 3 lineups, I don't think I'm touching any of those bowls. Spend ups. So yeah, and I guess are we in agreement here that if Marcus Smart is out, that we just jam in all the Peyton Pritchard that we can?
It'll be very difficult not to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially against this matchup here with the Timberwolves, who are, I guess we could do after lock. I'll do that myself. Rank the teams that are most fucked tonight by COVID. Minnesota would certainly be up there. Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jared Vanderbilt, Naz Reid, Patrick Beverley now going to take a seat for one more game coming back. Torian Prince, McKinley Wright the fourth. Not
Ollie
the best.
Zerbiak.
Yeah, not the best fourth on this slate. That honor would go to Lonnie Walker the fourth. But that leaves us with Malik Beasley as the most expensive player on this Minnesota team on DraftKings. Then everybody else 5-1 and below. Again, can't get your McDaniels mixed up today. Jaden is the one here in Minnesota. He's at 5-1 small and power forward eligible. He's a priority for me tonight, especially on Superdraft, where you can get him. I believe it's at 1.85x. Here I go talking about not getting my McDaniels confused, and I'm doing just that. He's 1.65x. It is Jalen who's 1.85x and the one I prefer on Superdraft. But Adam, all of that to say this: Nathan Knight 3-3 center only, I think, is the only downside here. He's my favorite player to roster on DraftKings from this Timberwolves team.
Yeah, and I believe he's been the highest point per dollar play on the Opto all day. So, yeah, it's just Minnesota. This is one of those teams where it's just like, and you know me, like I like to provide stats and trends and metrics and all this stuff, but it's like they're gonna need players on the floor if they're playing, just they're viable. Like it's just you look at the Opto and it's just like Minnesota, Memphis. It's just Atlanta. It's just we're just in that zone right now where there's teams, and not every team is as shorthanded and screwed as Minnesota is right now. But yeah, I mean Nathan Knight, 3,300. Yes, not incredible that he's only center eligible, but I mean the center position as a whole takes a hit on this slate. There's already it's not a Jokic slate, which Giannis is not a Giannis slate, and then Towns is out. DeAndre Ayton's now out. Like, there's a lot of centers that we don't have to pay up for. I did mention that I like Christian Wood, but it's just like it's kind of easy to be able. It's easier on this slate to say, okay, I'm going to use a center spot on a value play like Nathan Knight.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that was one of the first things I looked for on this slate, because we've had the center position so stacked for the last couple of slates.
And Greg Monroe's not available on the player pool, right?
He is not. He is available, however,
right, he's playing tonight
on Superdraft at 2x there. So if you want to get a little moose in your life and you hadn't been playing EuroLeague the last couple of years, you could do that on Superdraft, but not something that I would recommend, not something I would do if I was playing over there on Superdraft tonight. I guess I don't know if you mentioned this already. I apologize, Adam. Josh Okogie also available for this Minnesota team. Another one of these guys that can go out there and play 20 minutes and get you 5 fantasy points. On average, he's not that bad, but not somebody that I have interest in tonight. I think we would be remiss if we left out the guys like, Jake Layman, Jalen Noel now with Patrick Beverley out. Those guys all viable values. And Jordan McLaughlin, I think, on the outside looking in terms of playability for me. Anything else for you on this Boston-Minnesota game?
Yeah, well, we'll just keep an eye on Marcus Smart's status. If he does get ruled out, Peyton Pritchard becomes an elite value play. And, yeah, I mean, Minnesota, it's just Layman, all these players, Noel, like 27 minutes seems like their floor. But, like, we saw, Beasley played 43 minutes last game. Like there's going to be situations where a couple players from this team are playing 38 to 40 minutes.
Yep, I agree. So let's flip to the 8:30 game. Interesting schedule here. None of these 7 games going off at the same time. We have a 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, 9, 10, and 10:30. This game 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Utah visiting the Spurs. Hopefully to get some revenge down in South Texas after the Spurs stole one in Salt Lake City last week. They'll have to do it without the services of Donovan Mitchell. He will be out for the next 2 games due to a back strain, I believe it was, for the Spider there. So you've got Rudy Gobert up top still at 9-1, but then, getting some news coming in here for Tuesday. Get that off my screen. Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal, Joe Ingles, and Rudy Gay all going to get a bump of some kind. And I know that you were looking in heavily to some of these guys earlier today, so I won't steal your thunder. Give me some Jazz talk here. Are we looking at Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson? Who's getting the biggest bump here for the Jazz?
So would it be fair to say that Utah, for whatever reason, just no matter what happens around the NBA, is like the one team that just is always mostly full strength? This is weird how it happens.
It's the most consistent team,
right?
Like over the last 3 years,
and that makes Utah like one of the more boring teams to talk about from a DFS perspective. But we know in the past we've seen Conley have rest days, especially last year. Mm-hmm. So like when one of Conley or Mitchell are out, then things get very interesting. So the last 2 seasons, Mike Conley leads the team in assist rate with Mitchell off the floor, 22%. Everybody's like, a lot of these players are over a fantasy point per minute. Conley, Jordan Clarkson leads the team in usage during that span with Mitchell off the floor at 31%. But then Joe Ingles, we talk about this a lot. He becomes more of a ball handler when one of Conley or Mitchell are out. He's got an 18% assist rate during that span. I believe he's 3,700 on DraftKings. They're all viable. Like, they're all very strong plays, in my opinion, especially in the mid-range where you have Conley and Clarkson. Like, Conley seems really safe. Clarkson has a ceiling, obviously, plays closer to 30 minutes. The one interesting note I saw was Royce O'Neal. Royce O'Neal led the team in touches the last time Donovan Mitchell missed a game, which was kind of surprising. You would think it would be Conley or Clarkson or Ingles, but it was Royce O'Neal. He had 87 touches during that game. Now, it wasn't like he was handling the ball, essentially, because his time of possession and his average seconds per touch were low, but I feel like he's in that, like, he has that, like, Draymond Green type of upside for a game. Not all the way up to Draymond Green because he's not, as good and he's not as involved, but, like, getting, touches off screens and facilitating a little bit, and he can walk into an outlier rebound game. So, yes, like, Conley, Clarkson, Ingles, obviously Gobert, all really strong plays, but I guess don't forget about Royce O'Neal because that shocked me to see that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really kind of that top, is it 6 now that are left? Conley, Bojan, Clarkson, Royce, Ingles, and I would include Rudy Gay in there as well, that with Donovan Mitchell out, they project well enough that I'm fine getting to any of them. I think my priorities there would be Conley and Royce, and then Joe Ingles just for their discount. And Jordan Clarkson, a very close, or I guess just kind of the first guy I left out there.
Like the more I think about it, I think like Ingles gets way more buzz when Mitchell or Conley are out. Mm-hmm. But for essentially the same price, like I think Royce O'Neal's a better play actually, because Ingles could still play 28 minutes, but Royce O'Neal plays minutes regardless.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you think Ingles gets in there and starts tonight, right?
No, he should, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and that also, you're getting some time there where he's sharing the court with Mike Conley to start both halves, which isn't exactly great for Joe Ingles' usage rate there. So I guess we can flip to the Spurs side unless you have anything else to touch on there. The only guy out of consequence here is DeJounte Murray, still waiting on. Yeah, it's I mean, let's be honest, man. It's good for the tank. Like, and we were heating up a little bit here. I think that at one point last week they had won like 8 of their
DeJounte was out here like playing too well for the Spurs. Like,
yeah, it was crushing us. So good little COVID break for him there. Hopefully he rests, gets fully healthy, and then comes back. Again, I told you before the season, 27 wins is the number. No more, no less. Get that record and put yourself in a position for a top 3 pick. But with him out tonight, you've got Derrick White leading the way salary-wise at 6'5", Jake Puddle in the middle, 6'4", Keldon Johnson, the big body at 5'7", and everybody else 4'2" and below, starting with Lonnie Walker. So when you look at this team, obviously a tough matchup, Adam, like one of the toughest in the league in terms of the regular season. But the Spurs 6.5-point home underdogs here in the second highest total on the slate. Do you have any interest in any of these cheap Spurs?
It's mostly Derrick White. Obviously, he's in the mid range, but like I don't think this is a slate to go to Lonnie Walker because we've seen his minutes can still be tough to trust with
Mhm.
Pop, especially with Devin Vassell, healthy.
Mhm.
Um, and then like if this was a completely normal slate, which we haven't had in 7 weeks or something,
Yeah.
like Trey Jones, you could take a shot on as a value play potentially, but there's just no reason to go there. But I do think Derrick White, like I think Derrick White is obviously a strong play, and
Mhm.
this is I don't know, this might be an interesting take, but like I would rather play Derrick White in this spot than I would play Jalen Brunson in Dallas. I think they have actually similar ceilings, so I do like Derrick White. We saw Keldon Johnson have a really strong game on Sunday.
Mhm.
The thing with DeJounte Murray is it's not like his absence is obviously massive for the Spurs. He does everything for this team.
Mhm.
But it's not like he's a massive usage player like you would think. Like I think he's around like 24, 25%. So when he's off the floor, it's not like you see a player that jumps to a 30+% usage rate. There's a handful of players in like the 22 to 24% range. But having said that, yeah, I mean Derrick White I think is a really strong play. Let me ask you this. I think this is very
Mhm.
interesting. Which mid 6K point guard do you like better in this game, Derrick White or Mike Conley?
Oh boy. I think, and trying to take my bias out here again. Keep in mind, I want this team to lose. I think it's Derrick White
I'm leaning
for the
Derrick White as
slight.
well, so
I mean, his assist rate jumped yesterday, and again, like everybody got what they wanted, exactly what they wanted on this Spurs team yesterday against the Pistons. Only 16 minutes. I don't even think quite touched 16 minutes. It was like 15 and a half minutes. He had 7 points, 10 assists, 3 rebounds, and a steal. Much tougher matchup tonight, but I think the minutes are going to be solid. The usage is going to be really solid. And yeah, I just think the slightly higher upside there from Derrick White. Less people that can handle the ball as a true point guard there. It's really just him and Trey Jones. I guess you could say Lonnie Walker could do that somewhat, but even with Donovan Mitchell out, you've still got Jordan Clarkson on the other side. We talked about Joe Ingles, and you also talked about how much Royce O'Neal handled the ball last time, and now it is PP season officially. Marcus Smart ruled out. Al Horford and Grant Williams will not have a minutes limit, and also some interesting starting lineups coming out. Hornets will start Ball, Rozier, Hayward, McDaniels, and Plumlee. And then the Rockets going with Armani Brooks, Josh Christopher, Eric Gordon, David Nwaba at the 4, as none of us predicted, and Christian Wood at the 5. So let's circle
I
back
mean
real
Christian
quick.
Wood is gonna any time he's on the floor with that group, he is going to have like a 40% rebounding rate. Like who's going to get rebounds of that on that unit other than him? My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. And did anybody not drop Trey Lance yet? Because just in time for your championship week, Adam, Jimmy Garoppolo out with a UCL tear and a fracture in his thumb. So it's Trey Lance season here in week 17. We also got Aaron Holiday out tomorrow for the Wizards in the health protocols. So be on the lookout for some Wizards COVID news to come. 9 p.m. Eastern, the Grizzlies visiting the Suns. Tough matchup here for the Grizzlies. They will be without Dylan Brooks and DeAnthony Melton here. So we saw John Conchar get in, kind of play that Dylan Brooks role yesterday, was on pace for just over 30 minutes before he lost a couple in the blowout, came right out with the starters. So to me, I'm very encouraged that guard forward eligible 3.1K John Conchar is going to play the exact same role tonight unless some news comes out between now and that tip off in about 2.5 hours. We know this guy can contribute across the box score. That was on display last night against Sacramento. Much tougher matchup here. But how do you feel about Conchar's value? And then kind of these other spend ups, like we've got John Morant under 9K now. That's also something that I have interest in.
Yeah, Conchar, one of the 5 best value plays in the slate. We saw what he did last game. Minutes should be very, very solidified. And the Suns still have Bridges and Cam Johnson, but like Jay Crowder being out isn't insignificant for that defense. So it definitely doesn't hurt. Yeah, Ja's interesting on this slate because before we already knew Crowder was going to be out, but then it's like, okay, going into Phoenix, Memphis is shorthanded. Like, how can this game stay competitive? Especially because Memphis hasn't been playing incredible as of late. But now with Ayton out on top of it, better chance this game stays closer. Ja at under 9K definitely has massive upside. So I think he's a very interesting tournament play. Yeah, the matchup against Chris Paul and Phoenix is not good, but like I think we can put Ja Morant in that category of like kind of matchup proof players. He's awesome. So yeah, like I like Conchar a lot, and Jaws obviously stands out as a very interesting play in terms of upside. The rest of this team is, I mean, not really on my radar. Like Steven Adams at 4.9 when JaVale McGee is in the same game, like just and other centers we talked about, just not really going there. Jaron Jackson Jr. I kind of make the same argument for him every slate. It's like there's not a lot of players around his price range at that position that have the ceiling he has, but it's just I feel like he hits it 2 out of every 10 games. So it's mostly Ja and Conchar from Memphis for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're in any sort of showdown or late slate scenario, I haven't looked at those offerings yet, but you're going to talk then about Triple J, Desmond Bane, Kyle Anderson. Even Brandon Clark came back and got some good run last night at 4.2. He's got the power forward eligibility there on DraftKings. And I think even Steven Adams, sub 5K, could be interesting in that scenario. But in the context of the main slate, not for me. I'm with you there, Adam. On this Phoenix side, here's where some more news comes in. DeAndre Ayton right before we went live into the COVID protocols. Also Jay Crowder there as well. Kaminsky, Elfrid Payton, Dario Saric, and Abdel Nader still out for this team. So I'll have to go back and check and make sure that I put JaVale McGee at a 10, 4.5K on DraftKings.
What about 11?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. Like there's a couple players that on a more normal slate could garner that 11 today. But with all the options, like it's tough to pinpoint, okay, this guy stands out above the other myriad of options that we have. So I guess it kind of starts with JaVale, right? But then the price is coming down on Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Decent matchup for them here at home. Do you have any interest?
Yeah, they're fine. Obviously, like you said, it starts with JaVale. He started 8 games this season. In those games, he's averaging 13.3 points, 9 rebounds, an assist, and a block per game.
Mm-hmm.
His per 36 minutes are ridiculous. We know we know how good he's been when Ayton's been out this season. So, obviously one of the best plays of the slate. And yeah, I mean, Booker and Chris Paul. I mean, Paul's under 8K on DraftKings. Booker's 8,100. I have no problem getting there, especially given the fact that Ayton and Crowder are out. The wings, though, like Crowder being out doesn't really move the needle for me on Cam Johnson, who's already priced at 4.6 and doesn't guarantee him to play 30-plus minutes exactly. And I feel like Bridges is at 5K, which is a really fair price tag for him, but just on this slate, like, is there a massive ceiling for Bridges? Occasionally, but it's mostly McGee, and if you want to play Chris Paul and or Booker and run it back with Ja Morant, makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The context of the full slate, not a ton of interest in those guys, but not a game stack that I would scoff at there, as you just mentioned. But it's kind of JaVale McGee for me, and then moving on. Again, no issue if you get a Devin Booker or Chris Paul as a last guy. And we'll move through these last 2 games and then circle back because I know there's more to talk about, I think, with Houston here, that lineup coming out, etc. So Dallas at Portland here. 10 p.m. Eastern on the game will be on the West Coast. 10 p.m. Eastern will be on the East Coast for those geography buffs out there. Kristaps Porzingis on the Dallas side leading the way salary-wise with Jalen Brunson at 7.7. Then kind of our Christmas Day guys, Sterling Brown, Frankie Smokes. You saw some Marquise Chris, Theo Pinson. But this team gets back Dorian Finney-Smith, who will take up a lot of those minutes on the wing. So when you look at this Dallas team going up against a shorthanded team in the Portland Trailblazers, so that Damian Lillard news may be the most important that we're waiting on. You got any priorities here from the shorthanded Mavericks?
Not really. I just nobody stands out really. Like you mentioned, Dorian Finney-Smith's back, and I'm not playing him at 5'8". Mm-hmm. And then it's just like, where else do you go? Like, we've seen this team missing Luka for a little bit now and some other players like Tim Hardaway Jr., but, like, I'm just not on Dallas. And then, like, if Lillard plays, Lillard's obviously a very strong play if he's active. Mm-hmm. If he sits, Anthony Simons becomes – I mean, if he sits, then, like, Simons is as good as it gets as a value play, especially with still no McCollum and all the other players out for Portland. And you can make the argument for Larry Nance as well at 5'2". He just does a little bit of everything, and they're so short-handed. So like Lillard's presence doesn't impact Nance at all. It might actually help him. Might give him more opportunities for assists. But honestly, like for me, it's keep an eye on the Lillard news. If he plays, I like him. If he's out, Simons comes close to a lock, and then I think Nance is perfectly fine regardless. And then other than that, like I guess like Brunson has a ceiling at 7'7", but I already mentioned like I prefer Derrick White at 6'5", and it's just not, even with Luke out and everything, it's not a priority for me.
I think on the Dallas side, I like Kristaps Porzingis. He's the one that would pique my interest the most. I know mid 8K price tag there, but looking at this Portland front court, no Yusuf Nurkic, no Cody Zeller, no Robert Covington. This is a matchup I think where Porzingis could really get on top of that price tag and his multiplier on Superdraft. And I guess the last guy I wanted to point out here, I'm with you on Nance, Simons, of course, if Lillard is out. But I think regardless of the Lillard news, I'm really high on DraftKings on a guy like Nasir Little, who should play 30-plus minutes regardless of that Lillard news. And if Lillard is out, he's just going to get even more usage. I mean, he's not a guy that takes a ton of shots in the first place, but contributes across the box scoring at 4-2, small and power forward eligible, I think is a piece of value that should go under-owned tonight. Not really the new shiny toy, but I think a really solid value to kind of anchor your lineup at the forward position.
That's what this slate has done to me, because I completely overlooked Little. So that's a great call, 100%.
Well, and as Herm put it earlier in the chat, like, it's okay if you miss one or two things. Like, that goes for everybody, because the constant stream of news the last couple of weeks is just, it's overwhelming at some point. So, no putting anybody down for missing one thing on a slate with 100 pieces of news. So with that, Adam, do you like Nas Little a little bit at 4-2?
Yeah, absolutely. 28% rebounding rate with Covington off the floor, and his usage rates, like you said, it's not going to be high, but it's higher than Nance's, and he's 0.96 fantasy points from it. So he could easily have like a 12 and 10 game, and he can add some stocks, and you'll be perfectly fine with that. So yeah, absolutely. Missed on that because I'm an idiot, but all jokes aside, yeah, I 100% agree. Are you on mute? He's on mute.
God. God.
Oh, let's go. You love to see it.
Getting sloppy. All right, we'll reset the sign after lock. Let's talk the late night hammer here, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Brooklyn going out to the West Coast to visit the Clippers. Both of these teams extremely short-handed. James Harden, he's going to be twice the ownership of any of these other spend-ups, like of the 9K and above guys. Like, everybody's going to 11-2 Harden tonight.
It's just so easy to play him too.
Yeah, you don't have any issue playing anybody that you want tonight. So James Harden, I think, probably going to be the highest owned stud here. 11-2. I'm all about it. I mean, we saw on Christmas, right? The guy was almost at value at halftime. The 36, 10, and 10 with 4 stocks, triple-double on Christmas. But to me, Adam, it's the 40 minutes that he should be playing in this game as long as it remains in the balance. He's an absolute lock to me up top. I don't feel like I really need to get different because all the other spend-ups on the slate don't project anywhere close, for me at least, to what Harden is going to do tonight, barring some craziness.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at his numbers from last game.
Yeah.
He possessed the ball for 11 and a half minutes.
Sounds like James Harden. Sounds like Houston James Harden.
Oh my, yeah, it's ridiculous. I guess the question is, Patty Mills, like, are we done? Are we just, is he going to set more 3-point records?
No. He first of all, there's no Russell Westbrook on the other side of this game to lose Patty Mills after he's already hit 6 threes. Yeah, let's take our eyes off him and go float in help side. I don't know. I'm sure Joe Metz saw that clip going around on Twitter. Yeah, not for me tonight. You are going to get probably high teens and shots for Patty Mills, so certainly on the showdown or a late slate. Maybe somebody that you'll have to have just the raw points because of the volume here, and the minutes should be really solid. But on the main slate, I can't pay 7 for. 4-1 international Patty. Nick Claxton, sub 5K. Blake Griffin looks like he's going back to the non-factor that he is for this team. But Bruce Brown got the elevated minutes on Christmas, 37 to be exact, 16, 6, and 4 in this game. He's at 4-7. I think that's kind of where my interest ends for this team. We had some Paul Millsap interest on the Christmas slate. Did not work out for us, his 6 minutes there. It's just not the same Paul Millsap. So I think it's Harden for me. And then Bruce Brown is a very much a secondary value, but a value nonetheless.
Could not agree more. And like Claxton's been productive for this team, but on this slate, like just we talked about Nathan Knight, we talked about JaVale, we talked about Plumlee. It's just very, very difficult to go there. And even if you want to go to a cheaper center on the other side of this game, probably better off doing that.
Yeah, I think, as we flip to the other side of this game, you've got Ivica Zubac at 5'3". You got Serge Ibaka, power forward eligible with no Isaiah Hartenstein. He is at 3.5, but kind of burying the lead here. No Paul George, obviously no Kawhi Leonard, no Reggie Jackson. I said Isaiah Hartenstein is also out. Nick Batum will not play tonight for the Clippers. And then Marcus Morris, my best friend, questionable for his conditioning coming back from the health and safety protocols, but that shouldn't affect a guy like Eric Bledsoe too much. 6K flat, the usage is up over the last 2 games with no Paul George. He's been fantastic from a fantasy standpoint, but Adam, I don't think we can count on 7 stocks again from Eric Bledsoe. So maybe tempering our expectations a little bit here, but how are you attacking the Clippers here in the late night hammer?
Is it weird if the Clippers, similar to like the Dallas game, or the Dallas team rather, not super high on? Like I think Ibaka is not the worst option, especially power forward eligible at 3,500. Minutes have been trending up. Hartenstein's out, and now Paul George is out again. But like, if I can get up to Derrick White or Conley at point guard over Bledsoe, I would do that. And then like Terrence Mann, good player, but like he's priced up already for Paul George being out, so it's not like it's like he's like this supreme value. And obviously, if Marcus Morris plays, that hurts. Luke Kennard, same kind of situation, 5,700. I'm not really on the Clippers.
Yeah, I think it's definitely tougher to get there now, certainly than when we started the day, started looking at the slate this morning. I'm still pretty high on Eric Bledsoe, just as he's a really safe option, and he showed the upside that he has with this version of the Clippers last night. Again, he doesn't have to get you 50 tonight to be extremely happy at that 6K price tag. So I think that's really strong. But again, you mentioned those other guys in that range. I would still prefer Derrick White over both Conley and Eric Bledsoe. But I think Bledsoe comes in second for me. Conley third of that trio.
Yeah, I think Bledsoe does have a higher ceiling because as good of a player as Conley is, and with Mitchell out and having such a high usage rate, still given the makeup of this Clippers team, Bledsoe should have to do more than Conley for his team. Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. And then, you kind of talked about the rest of this team. Guys like Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard priced up, especially on this slate. And you've seen kind of the revolving door of the Amir Coffees, the BJ Bostons, the Justice Winslows get minutes and then be kind of pulled from the rotation the next game and then come back. And
yeah, Winslow could be interesting. I'm not like just in general, because we've seen him play point forward for multiple teams, but we just can't guarantee. He could play 6 minutes, he could play 16 minutes, he could play 26 minutes. Just don't have to go there. But just like in a vacuum, we've seen him play point forward for multiple teams. Like this seems like a situation for the next couple of games where the Clippers could try that, but obviously on this slate, just don't have to go there. But just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I'm with you. So 8 minutes and change here until lock. We will get to some of these questions as soon as I scroll past everybody dunking on me for only going 3 days since last being muted. A little underdog update here talking about Wolves players. So go ahead and read that off. I'm sure it'll be posted in the chat as well. Jordan McLaughlin, Malik Beasley, Jaden McDaniels, Jake Layman, Nathan Knight, Leo Bolmaro, Jalen Noel, Josh Okogie, Rajon Tucker, Chris Silva, and the Moose, Greg Monroe. So that's 2, 6, 8, 10. Was that 11 guys? 12 guys. 11 guys. Not so good with the math. It's 11 guys. Questions here for us. Rybut's asking David Nwaba or Josh Christopher. Again, these starters for the Rockets. I'm with you, Josh Christopher. The starters for the Rockets, Josh Christopher, Armani Brooks, Eric Gordon, David Nwaba, and Christian Wood. Our buddy Triple H chiming in with the new profile picture. He's a big Mike Trout fan, I think. Gobert or Capella on FanDuel in a tournament for you.
I understand Capella is going to be way less popular, but I still prefer Gobert. I'm
also on Gobert over Capella. Man, I have a feeling a lot of these questions are going to be really tough because it's going to be a ton of players that both of us really like. Josh asking Conchar or Nathan Knight. Positional, the positions make that tougher. Like on paper, I want Nathan Knight, but you're taking up a center spot.
But it's not as bad on this slate at taking up a center spot. That's the only thing that makes it even tougher because, like I said, like there's no Jokic or Giannis on the slate already, and then we lost Ayton. Like the center position is usually very loaded, but tonight it's there's value plays. But who's the best center we talked about in the high end? Like Christian Wood?
Yeah, probably Christian Wood, Rudy Gobert.
So
Capella at 8-3, but yeah,
it's fine per usual, but.
I think it's more just like at the low end, like I have so much interest in getting to JaVale McGee and Nathan Knight. I think that's probably the most popular center pairing on DraftKings now. But then I also have interest in getting to Mason Plumlee. I think Alperen Şengün is interesting at what should be minuscule ownership. And we talked about Christian Wood. I would have a lot of interest in getting some of him into my build as well. Do we lean Gordon Hayward now with him starting over Oubre? Well, I would say he was always going to start. And
Oubre only had been starting the last month out of necessity. They want him off the bench as their sixth man. But I talked about it. Like I still think Oubre's ceiling is higher.
I think I would go Oubre there, even coming off the bench. A little bit higher usage for a guy like that, and I think lower ownership because he is coming off the bench. G-Funk, my guy, you got to specify which McDaniels, my friend. We got both brothers going on this slate and both very much in play. He's asking McDaniels or Little. I think, honestly, both of those guys, both of the McDaniels have higher upsides for me than Nas Little tonight. And without that Damian Lillard news, I'll side with either McDaniels. And it becomes closer if Damian Lillard is out for me.
I agree.
My guy, Steelers fan, a tough day for both of us yesterday.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's not. If we don't get Lillard news, would you play PP over Simons? I would. In one lineup, I would go ahead and lock in. Like those guys project very similar.
Exactly.
Simons will be fantastic with Lillard out, but yeah, I would go ahead and play Peyton Pritchard. At this point in 6A, asking Jalen McDaniels or Josh Christopher. I will Josh Christopher.
I mean, Christopher's going to handle the ball more, you'd think. So, yeah, I guess I'll lean there.
Stefano chiming in from the couch at a very nice 6,900 and technically no minutes limit. What are your thoughts on Al Horford? For me, he's just not doing enough at that price to get there. Not out of play, but I think just right below him in that price range on DraftKings and right above him. Like I think I'd rather spend up on a Jalen Brunson. I'd rather have Patty Mills tonight than Al Horford. And then down to like a Norm Powell, 6'6", Derrick White. We talked about those other guards. But if you're just looking at, I think, power forward or center, he's a fine play if that's the salary you have left. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, not like very high on my radar. Like if you're looking strictly at the center position, I might even just prefer like Pirtle at 6'4".
Sure. Yeah. Saving that extra $500. Not crazy to think you could upgrade significantly on this slate with that savings. Josh asking here, Conchar and Armani Brooks or Nathan Knight and Jalen McDaniels. Fuck, man. Run both. If I have to choose, give me the second one. Love Nathan Knight.
First one was Conchar and Brooks, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll lean the second side as well, but that's tough.
Steelers fan chiming in again, a Little or Christopher and eat the salary. That's tougher. I think I would Josh Christopher and just leave that salary on the table tonight. How about you,
Yeah,
Adam?
I agree.
Triple H saying Armani Brooks or Josh Christopher for us on FanDuel. I mean, straight up, it's fucking close, man. I would look at Kyle's projections there and play the one that is projected higher. I love both of those guys. In 6A saying Jaden McDaniels and Porzingis or LaMelo and his brother Jalen McDaniels. So you're getting two Hornets there in that second one.
Yeah, I like the mellow side.
Okay. I think I'll lean the first one. But again, like I said a few minutes ago, pretty much all of these great options, all of them in their own right. So again, this is a night where I would say run 2, run 3, run 4, like keep throwing in lineups if you like them, because there's so many easy 1v1s and 2v2s to be had, and still having strong lineups in the process. My guy Romulus, one of my Spurs fans here in the chat, Peyton Pritchard and Nas Little, or Armani Brooks and Jalen McDaniels. Single entry, he's already got Jaylen Brown in the lineup. So Peyton Pritchard and Little, or Armani Brooks and Jalen McDaniels.
First side. The Marcus Smart news changed a lot for me. Like, Pritchard and Brown just set up so well. So,
yeah, I will also stay on that first side with you. Tommy asking Nas Little or Josh Christopher. I'll take Christopher.
Ton of Nas Little questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Lillard being out obviously impacts the entire team, but like if Lillard's in or out, it doesn't make me not interested in Little. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I do slightly prefer the Christopher news just because we already know he's starting and we already know Houston's missing all of their guards essentially. So
looks like we have cleared the queue here of questions. I believe we are down to about 30 seconds here until this first game locks. Houston at Charlotte. Again, 6 games to come after that. So everybody make sure you stay tuned to your news feed. Stay tuned to the FTN NBA Daily Discord. Obviously, we'll be with you throughout the night and updating the ranks, projections, etc. as we go. If you've been checking us out here on YouTube or Twitter and you're not a subscriber yet, I would encourage you to come check us out here at FTN Daily. We are at lock, but just to let you know, the NBA package here includes all kinds of stuff. We got a state-of-the-art optimizer, including proprietary player and ownership projections, covers every slate every day. Those are managed by our good friend, the Opto extraordinaire, Kyle Murray, and our buddy Alex Blickel. All kinds of tools here as well, Adam, including the NBA on-off splits, advanced EVP. That's Stefano's baby. I don't know how he made such a cool tool while being on the couch 24/7. Also, access to the NBA premium Discord channel here at FTN Daily. All kinds of debauchery going on in there and some basketball talk as well. Rankings from Fast Eddie Fear and myself. All that every single day here. And that NBA package starts at $49.99 per month, but you can use the promo code FTNTV and it'll get you 15% off every month through the end of the season. So you enter that code FTNTV, get 15% off here for your first month, and then that same 15% discount applied to your subscription through the end of the NBA Finals. So again, that code's FTNTV. It's scrolling right below us here on the screen, gets you 15% off every month of your subscription. And when you do join us, jump in that Discord, tag Adam, tag myself. Let us know you're here because we would love to have you. And Adam, now that we are past lock, let's check out some of the ownerships before we get out of here. I know Tom, poor producer Tom, man, snowed in on his vacation. He's supposed to fly out today. The flight's delayed. So he's pulling we'll call it triple duty, because the man did a game-by-game with Javi Prolezo behind the paywall before our stream. He's behind the glass right now producing the Dream Stream, and then I believe he's going on the NFL stream to break down the showdown with those guys over there. Some of the best showdown minds in the industry. That starts at 7:15 Eastern. So if you're an NFL sub, head over there as soon as we are done with NBA. Pulling up some of this ownership here from the first game, Adam. So apologize for the extended vamp here, but we should have it any second now. Here we go. Any guesses on who is the highest owned player from the Charlotte and Houston game?
That's tough because there's value on both sides.
This is not fair. This is not fair.
It's not fair?
No, it's not fair. I would have never got this.
So that makes me assume it's not McDaniels, Ball, or Christian Wood.
We'll see.
I don't know. That you just threw me off.
Maybe I'm the one that's off here. It is LaMelo Ball.
Okay.
Came in at 33%. I guess that's not crazy. I just thought I thought those Houston guys would get over him. I thought McDaniels, just because of the value and how much I expected people to spend up for Harden. But I guess you have room for multiple studs today. That makes sense. But man, 33% LaMelo Ball over guys like Josh Christopher at 26%. David Nwaba is actually third here at 23%. Then you get Jalen McDaniels, 21.5. Christian Wood, 17. I like that number a good bit. Didn't have to play too much to get over the field there. Gordon Hayward at 11. Then we're into the single digits. Terry Rozier, Eric Gordon, Kelly Oubre, all right around 8.5%. Mason Plumlee at 5. Armani Brooks at 5. I love both of those. Armani Brooks I like a little bit more, but both of those.
You already said Christian Wood, right?
Yeah, he was at 17.
Okay. I was just reading and I was like, you did say Christian Wood, right? Because as you got lower, I was like, oh my goodness, is Christian Wood sub 10%? Didn't think he would be, but I just wasn't sure.
We've got 1.7% Daniel Tice, who could very well DNP tonight after not getting the start here. Cody Martin, a very nice 0.69% coming back from the COVID protocols. And a decent amount of people played themselves here. 0.28% Jayshawn Tate, 0.26%. Jalen Green, 0.09%. KJ Martin, 0.07%. Kevin Porter Jr. So we always appreciate those people who give us free equity. Again, tune into that NFL stream here going off in about 10 minutes, breaking down tonight's Saints-Dolphins game. Adam, anything you need in your season-long leagues to kind of close out a run to the title games tonight?
I need Jalen Waddle to score less than 43.5 full PPR points, so I should be good. But considering Ian Book is starting for the Saints, the Dolphins offense will probably be on the field a lot. But but no, other than that, yeah, it's just Jalen Waddle, who I don't think will score 43. But then again, I didn't think Dallas would win 56-14 yesterday. So
yeah, Joe and I were on the NBA stream yesterday afternoon, and Joe brought up the fact that he and I were looking like we could meet up in the championship of one of the FTN employee leagues here, the basketball taking over the football streets. And then Peaches ended up getting up by I think he's up 40 right now on me. We were projected a point apart before that Dallas game. He had a couple Dallas pieces. I have Devontae Parker, so if Devontae Parker could come through with 40-plus points tonight, then I'll see Joe in the title game. If not, congratulations to Tyler. And I'll be cheering for Joe so the NBA team can have a fantasy football title on our resume here. Couple more questions before we get out of here. P-Buck asking a 3v3 here, Adam. Knight, Little, and Brown, or McGee, Layman, Porzingis? I think it's the first one for me. It's not super close. I'm not very high on Layman. He projects just fine for his price. And if I was running multiple lineups, I would have a few shares. But Knight, Little, and Jaylen Brown is a very strong trio.
Yeah, and for me, it wasn't even about that as much as it is. I just think Jaylen Brown's a much better play than Porzingis at the high end. So,
True.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you had to pick one, we did go through this question, I believe. But Stefano asking again, Conchar or Knight? And I would play Knight. I would play Nathan Knight, but again, obviously, I love both of those guys.
I would lean Conchar, but it's close.
Okay, yeah, and again, love those guys. I was making my Conchar case in chat earlier this afternoon. He's somebody that I'm always a fan of when he's going to play elevated minutes at a low price tag. A great fantasy producer, Mr. John Conchar. I'll have some John Conchar trivia for you next time we see each other, Adam.
Oh, because I did so good at trivia on Christmas.
Tyreek chiming in with some season-long talk before we get out of here. He left Burrow and Damian Harris on his bench for Stafford and Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Burrow on my bench for Stafford, Dak, and it's I get it, but at the same time, it doesn't help. It stings.
Yeah, I mean, there's only there's only one person at the end of the fantasy season who is happy with their experience. And even then it's kind of like, you get a congrats maybe from a couple people, you get a little bit of cash, but then like most of it is just like your friends like despise you for it. Like they don't want to talk to you, etc. So like, I don't know what we're doing, but that's it's not going to deter me from coming right back and playing, double-digit leagues again next year. Too much fantasy football talk for the NBA show, so we'll go ahead and get out of here. Leave that to the pros, or I'll leave it to the pros. An NFL pro here with me on the NBA stream today. Adam Pfeifer, appreciate you being with me on the Dream stream. Appreciate everybody else who tuned in. So for Adam, I'm Zach. Shout out producer Thomas Snowden up there in Tahoe. Hope he stays safe. Have a good time on the NFL stream, my friend. And as always,
let's get these beans.